feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Thursday afternoon. It's August 28th. And coming up on today's show, it will be me and Kyle getting into a few different topics because it's that time of year where it's hard to do an hour on any one topic. But the Wolves did hire a new CEO, the first prominent move by Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry and their ownership group. So we'll get into some details there. We're also going to talk a little bit about Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid, all now being 24, 25, and 26 years old, respectively. They're not that young anymore. Maybe not in their primes, but they're close. We'll talk about what we kind of think that means from an expectation standpoint. And then the third segment is going to be super dumb. Kyle and I are big fantasy football nerds, and when we were talking earlier this week about what to talk about for this episode, we kept getting distracted, started talking about how we're both drafting our fantasy teams this weekend. So I thought of the very dumb idea of giving each Wolves player a fantasy football player comp, like Ant as Bijan Robinson, top pick, young guy, stud, whatever. Your fantasy team only goes as far as Bijan takes you, like the Wolves ceiling being tied to Ant or whatever. I don't know. I did a bunch of really weird, dumb ones. I'm recording this before Kyle comes on, so don't tell him, but I've got a Jackson Smith and Jigba comp I think he'll like. Again, I understand that's a dumb topic. I'm ready for the not everyone should have a podcast comments. You're right. But if you want to skip ahead to just that, the timestamps are down there below. Also, before we get started, I did want to acknowledge the school shooting that happened here at Annunciation in Minneapolis. I spent a lot of time yesterday just thinking about the idea of community, the importance of it, and also just like, how do we define community? How do I define community? Because I feel like community to me made more sense when I was a kid, or maybe it was more easily defined back then. It was the city I lived in, or maybe like the town I went to high school in. The people in those areas were the community. They were my community. And because my community was so defined back then, when something happened, good or bad, I felt like I always felt it as a kid. If something awful or fantastic happened in my community, I knew about it. We all knew about it. But later on in life, I think for many of us, maybe after like college age, community becomes a little harder to define for us. We just become more transient as adults, right? We move around from job to job, apartment to apartment, house to house, maybe even city to city. And sometimes where we live just feels like where we live, it's like home base and less so home. And I was thinking yesterday, even though I've lived in Minneapolis for a long time now, after not having grown up here, I don't know, community still feels a little different than it did when I was a kid. But the shooting did happen in our community. It happened in the city that I live in, and to people in the community of the city I live in now, and it's many of your communities directly. Unknowingly, you might have grocery shopped by someone who was directly impacted by this event, or been in a coffee shop with them, maybe even sat next to them at a Wolves game or something. The tragedy that they are facing, what that means is it very well could have been your tragedy or my tragedy. And me personally, I'm working on absorbing the idea of that, because I feel like if I don't, or if we don't, this becomes normal. And this is not normal. It's kids, man, you know. I don't have any answers. I'm not trying to push you to this, or donate, go do all those things if you want. But I just wanted to say, to remind myself in front of all of you in our weird little Wolvesy community we have here through the show, that this did happen to our community. And to anyone who is feeling particularly struck by this tragedy and maybe taking some time this weekend to listen to this podcast just for a break, I hope we can help. I hope we can be a good type of distraction. And I just want to say on behalf of Kyle and everyone else who appears on this show weekly, yeah, we love you. And we're thinking about you. All right. Some Wolves talk for your Labor Day weekend with Kyle Theige coming up next. Let's go. Support for today's episode comes from Square, your all-in-one business partner, making your day-to-day easier. From point of sale systems and payments to inventory and customer tools, Square brings everything together in one simple platform so you can stay organized, sell anywhere, and keep things moving. I was thinking about Square and them being a sponsor when we went to the farmers market this last weekend. We realized we did not have cash when we got there. So literally, we could only go to the places that did have Square to be able to purchase whatever food or drink we were getting. It really does feel like a need in today's small business world. They provide you with comprehensive tools to manage your business for all the behind-the-scenes work you do, tracking sales, staying on top of inventory, and getting a better understanding of your customers. Square keeps up so you don't have to slow down. Get everything you need to run and grow your business without any long-term commitments. And why wait? Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/DaneMoore. That's SQUARE.com/GO/DaneMoore. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today.
Hey, yeah.
We are now joined by Kyle Theige. Kyle, we've been waiting for some Wolves news here before getting back on the pod together. We got some yesterday. I know we were talking over last weekend. We started hearing some rumblings about the Wolves getting close to hiring a new CEO, and that the potential hire was maybe not coming from the NBA. We're like, what's going on here? And then Wednesday, the team officially announced that they did hire someone outside of the NBA, longtime CEO of the Florida Panthers, Matthew Caldwell. He signed a 10-year contract to become the Wolves' new chief executive officer to help, to head up the Wolves business side under the Laurie and Rodriguez administration. I know we both have a handful of different notes on this topic, but that happens yesterday or just kind of in the last week. You've been hearing things. What has stood out to you in this process?
Well, good morning. Ni hao. What's happening? We needed this, you and I, because this is the first year doing these pods that we're doing August pods. And it was a tough weekend for you and I because we were debating, talking about jerseys or fantasy football, which I think one of those topics might be brought up later today. But no, I've said this for a couple of years now that just with how smooth and small my little brain is, I prefer this stuff. Like the business side always kind of interests me, like the really geeky basketball stuff interests you. And we'd heard about Matthew Caldwell's name now for a couple of weeks. But once it finally broke, I think the first thing that kind of stood out to me was seeing people, whether it be, in the replies of John's tweet or in his article or just, sending us, you and I, messages that were like season ticket holders for the Florida Panthers that were like, dude, this guy is a stud. Even this morning, I heard Dan Le Batard on his show was talking about how the Florida Panthers have become like the organization in the NHL that other NHL franchises try to mimic. I think something that'll stand out in a press release, or I'm sure will get talked about as he's kind of rolled out and introduced, which I think he's got to do the employee modules on like the 2nd of September. Like he starts on Tuesday after Labor Day.
Yeah, dude, as I understand it, like he's here, like buying a house, kids are going to school here. Like this isn't like they just contacted him this week and the process is starting. I don't know exactly, but kind of back in June when Mark and Alex took over like an official capacity. I know we talked to them out in Vegas a couple weeks after that. I think the process has kind of been rolling since then. Obviously, they hired a turnkey to kind of conduct the overall search, but that's been going on now. What would that be? 2 months from when Mark and Alex officially took over. So this has been in the works, and it's like final, like it's ready to go. Media day is in a month from now, and they tip off the season in maybe 7 weeks, 8 weeks or something like that. So he's here, he's ready, and he's leading the charge.
And I think that one of the things that will stand out, like I was saying in the press release, is that the Florida Panthers have won a couple Stanley Cups. To me, that's not as important, even though the ultimate goal of all this is to win NBA Finals and win championships. I just think it's what he did on the other side of it, right? Because Tim Conley is still going to be the man who has his finger on the pulse of all this and has probably the most impact on the Wolves winning a title other than Anthony Edwards. But it's more about what Matthew Caldwell did in terms of, like, I think there was some reports that the Florida Panthers were, like many professional teams do, by the way, losing $40-50 million before he kind of came in and kind of swung that thing around where now they're making a big profit. I know people don't really care about rich people making more money, but sometimes that profit is how you then flip it back into paying luxury tax or paying for things like, I don't know, a private stadium. But then also too, so season ticket sales under Caldwell and the Florida Panthers were obviously great. The team was great, but it was getting all the games on TV, like in local markets, which when you and I got to hang out with Mark and Alex in Vegas back in July, and they asked you and I, like, what are some things you think we should address? And you interrupted me before I could even say all my laundry list of things. Like, you got to get all these games on TV. Like, you have to have every single person in the state that wants to watch Anthony Edwards be able to watch Anthony Edwards. So I'm intrigued. I'm interested to see. I mean, there's, for years I've been bringing up the whole dim the lights in the lower bowl thing. So I'm going to take credit for that one. But then when I find out that, like, hey, that's actually not a light switch, that's something you have to meet with the mayor about. So I don't know how the TV thing is going to work. You've seen some teams kind of like the Jazz or the Suns kind of come up with their own way, but he is going to be brought in. And I would throw this back to you. The most interesting aspect of the press release or the news or whatever is a 10-year deal, because you don't see that. And we can talk about what Mark and Alex have done in terms of spending since they got here. But to me, and I'm curious on your thoughts, that 10-year deal stands out because his number one job description, Matthew Caldwell, when he shows up on Tuesday, he is going to be tasked with this new stadium. And that new stadium is going to take, again, if we can't get the lights dimmed overnight, think about how long it's going to take to build a stadium. And I think Matthew Caldwell's number one goal or job or whatever is going to be to figure out how to build a world-class new stadium. And it's going to take a lot of time, and he needed a lot of time, and that's why he's got a decade-long deal.
The reaction to the 10-year part of it was the reaction just that I've seen that kind of surprised me the most. It's like, whoa, 10 years. Like, what? That's crazy. Nobody gets 10-year contracts. Well, we don't normally get like contract details and like up the CEO was signed to the full taxpayer mid-level exception for 4 years. No, like we don't really know these things. And also that position is a much more long-term position. I mean, we're both believers, and I think pretty much everybody who listens to this is a big-time believer in Tim Conley. But if it came out tomorrow or that Tim Conley got a 10-year contract extension or Chris Finch got a 10-year contract extension, it'd be like, whoa, what if you want to like change direction somewhere along the way? That feels irresponsible. I do not feel that way at all about a business executive. Ethan Casson was here for 10 years before that. I don't know how his contracts or whatever is split up, but just, knowing some people who like work for the Twins on the business side, your tenures are substantially longer. I'm sure they had to guarantee Caldwell 10 years of money to attract him to come to Minnesota from a very successful place, an organization in the Florida Panthers. But especially when you talk about building a new stadium and you talk about a full-on sort of rebrand and new culture and all of those sort of things that they're obviously going to do as new owners, whatever, if it's 10 years. I would, if it wouldn't have been any contract terms come out, if there would have been they'd just be like, they hired a CEO, my assumption would have been that he's going to be here for 10 years because that's what those people do. So yes, it's a huge like financial commitment, but I don't think it should have any of the like fear that you see sometimes in other sports where, trying to think of like some football coaches signed, or like Will Hardy signed a 6 or 7 year contract to be the Utah Jazz head coach. And you're like, all right, so that's 7 years of the coach. And that makes you shake your head at it. But I don't know. I don't know Matthew Caldwell other than the bullet points and stuff that we've gotten, but the 10-year part of it doesn't really do anything to make me go, in any sort of way. And I feel like some people have done that.
Well, and I still get it because you and I think this will be our 9th season coming up that we've covered the team, but they've been a part of my life for my whole life. But I get the cynicism or the skepticism, but also if it would have been in the press release that he signed a 2-year deal, you also would have freaked the fuck out that he's like, oh my God, he's only here for 2 years. Like, what if he just wants a cash grab and he's going to leave? So sure. I will say this too on him. This is not, I mean, football is still king, right? And we're going to do an NFL segment in a little bit. But then to me, in my bias, I think it's like the NBA is like the second biggest sports league in the country. And then, NHL and MLB kind of fall in there. This is not Matthew Caldwell's first offer or team to come calling to get him. I know this sounds very dumb, but I also think it's very noteworthy that he happily moved him and his family from Florida to Minnesota, like just in terms of weather, like to be able to recruit a guy that's like, why would you leave? If Dan Le Batard in Florida or in Miami thinks that you have created a world-class organization that all 29 or hockey teams look up to, why would you leave that? And to be able to recruit him up here, I know for a fact that two of the most excited people about this hire are Tim Connelly, who played a massive role in this, and those two now will, I think, report directly to Alex and Mark. But another guy who was very complimentary of this signing or this move was Adam Silver, because I think Adam Silver knows, by talking to other people in the league, how well-respected Caldwell is, the military background, the fact that he was like the youngest CEO, I think, at 36. He is a guy that is well-respected in the sports world. I think he's well-respected in the finance world. I think he had a lot of overtures to go do stuff. And for them to land this, and I being the guy that famously a couple of years ago dropped that Drake lyric calling what I thought new ownership to be broke boys, like you kind of look at every step of the way, and whether you're skeptical still or not of how this all plays out, every time they've been asked or had the ability to spend money, Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez, they've done it, right? Like Tim Connelly, Michael Grady, and now Matthew Caldwell, like they have brought in real big time people that I think, at least for those first two, right, with Connelly and Grady, like have changed the direction of this organization.
Yeah, I was drawing a lot of Conley comparisons and just in like functionally how it's going to look. Tim Connelly gets hired right back in July 2022 and hires Matt Lloyd to become the general manager and Dell Demps to become the vice president of basketball operations. It's going to be the same thing on the business side now, where Matthew Caldwell has been hired as the CEO, and he is going to be able to hire out the entire C-suite, as the CEO, COO, CMO left in the process of the ownership turnover. So I think it's going to feel like that again. It's not, and that's important because it's not just a person at the top of the tree. It's like all of his lieutenants pretty much are going to be new people that don't have, just are not from the Glenn Taylor history of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So he's going to be able to build this thing out himself and in his vision, but which is also a shared vision of Rodriguez and Lowry. I tell you this, I was talking to somebody this morning, but I heard that the relationship with Matthew Caldwell goes back to the New York Mets purchase. Maybe you heard that too, with when Lowry and Rodriguez were trying to purchase the New York Mets. Vinny Viola, South Florida guy who Alex knows, who owns the Florida Panthers, was part of that process with them in trying to purchase the Mets. So I thought that was interesting in that if Vinny Viola was part of their group, Matthew Caldwell was there with ARod and Lowry. So they've known him going back prior to when they bought the Wolves, and they knew him in this sort of context of buying and owning and running a team. So I guess I kind of like that it isn't just that they do have some sort of personal connections to this, while also having, as I understand it, cast a pretty wide net through the consulting firm Turnkey on the hire. But this is a long-standing relationship. And Vinny Viola, he released a statement that he was really sad to see Caldwell go from his team, the Panthers, but that working with Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez was the type of opportunity that it's willing to let him go for, but recommended that he take that step too. So this is so different than what we normally do of like, let's look at the past track record. Like I had to Google who won the Stanley Cup the past couple years. I don't know anything of like his background or the Panthers or whatever. And I'm mostly, I think like everybody, we're all just kind of sitting here waiting to see what does this all look like? What's happening with the lights? What's happening with the overall experience of the team and the organization, and what's happening with the a new stadium build because apparently Caldwell has experience in that too with the renovation they did to the Florida Panthers stadium there somewhat recently too. So,
and I just want to stress that again, from what I understand, I'm sure you have heard the same. Like Tim Conley did play a big role in this in terms of like he interviewed him, like they've got to know each other. I think they're like maybe putting their kids in the same school type thing. So that
I think the
relationship,
same age, right? Just about.
okay. So like that's going to be a massive thing because those two people are the two heads of this whole thing that will report to Mark and Alex. And I'm sure Mark and Alex will be around this whole thing more often, but still like they have other things going on. So you got to have people that are boots on the ground every day. So I think that's really interesting. And then just in terms of Tim Conley, this is more of an unrelated CEO nugget, but I just keep getting people asking me this question. It is my best understanding that Tim Conley is signed for 2 more years on that deal that he originally signed. So like the options that had always scared us, whatever, like those are now gone. He's like a quote unquote opted in. Would an extension be nice on his side? I'm sure. Would an extension be nice in Mark and Alex's eyes? Yeah, and I'm sure they'll come to that. But I also don't think this is something that's going to break in the next couple of days. Like he is here for the long haul of this. They'll try to extend him. They'll try to have all those people in place. But big picture,
that's a good thing to point out. It was a 5-year contract that he had weird opt-outs out of after
those are gone
year 2 and year 3. Those are gone. So yeah, he's 3 years into his 5-year contract, which means he's under contract for 2 more years at a, I mean, remember we're talking about 5 years, $40 million that Tim Conley signed for before with a little equity stake type thing going on in there too. So it's not like he's on contract for 2 more years on the Denver Nuggets salary. He was, you know what I mean? Right. I'm sure he'll get a raise in his next contract, as that's just kind of how that stuff goes. But it's not like Tim Conley is comparatively underpaid on this current contract compared to other.
He's just not a free agent. Is like those things blew my mind too. Like those are the past. The windows have closed, and now he's just kind of working on a contract. So I think the last thing also that is kind of topical and timely with this conversation is that, again, like in the beginning, I was excited about new ownership, but then you get critical as it got kind of weird. And then now I'm, yes, totally buzzed off the Kool-Aid and all in on this because I think that this organization, as we've said many times, needed a refresh, a rebrand, and just new, smarter, more innovative people at all levels of the organization. And I think my favorite team has that now. But you kind of then look at like what the Suns are going through right now and like Matt Ishbia and all that stuff. And one thing that Mark and Alex said when they got here, and they've delivered on more than anything, is that they're just trying to hire the best people and then staying out of the way. And you can criticize any small move, big move, whatever, but in that line of thinking, they have nailed that compared to other owners that get in and like start digging into stuff. Like I've never heard anything but, they go get Tim Conley and then let Tim Conley do basketball stuff. Hire Matthew Caldwell and let him do business stuff. Hire Finch or have Finch and extend him and Cheryl Reeve on the link side and like let them do their stuff. That's how. And people don't like this sometimes. Like basketball, football, like these organizations are the same thing as 3M. Like they're all run similarly the same in terms of profit and loss and all these things. So staying out of the way and hiring good talent, even like, again, Michael Grady, and then just be like, all right, we're going to do everything we can to keep you. They got to give our guy Jim Pete a lifetime deal here soon. But that's the best way that organizations are run. And that's how you become a world-class organization, is to hire the best people, compensate them well, and then just get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to. I think that's a good place to leave it. I do want to say there's a way to get out of the way while also being present, and
for sure,
And I think they've with both Mark and Alex, like they have other things going on too. Like they have their day jobs, with what Alex does at the media, and what Mark is doing like with Wonder. I think if I warped back in my brain to 2021, when obviously I knew who Alex Rodriguez was, but didn't know who Mark Lowry was, and we were getting to know Mark Lowry, I was kind of like, well, once they have this, Mark Lowry is going to kind of be the CEO, and he will be this business guy. That without knowing them and just seeing how involved Mark was. He's in the gym getting up jumpers at the practice facility daily. He was there all the time. But a lot has happened in as I understand it, in Mark's professional life too, with his company that he's building right now with Wonder. So I think they're, I think it feels like they're the right amount of present, and I think it is probably a good thing that it's Conley's got the basketball side, Caldwell's got the business side, and then they seem like the owners that know that they don't want to overstep into that, into being like the owners that meddle and mess this up. So I'm excited to see what Caldwell has to bring. As I was with Conley, I'm encouraged that the process that they did on the left side of the basketball operations, that I think has really worked, is pretty much looking like it's going to be the same thing on the business side, which admittedly I don't know as much about. I just think the Conley thing, ownership debacle aside, has been really smooth for 3 years, and yeah, we'll see what these next 10 years of Matthew Caldwell look like. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Falling Knife Brewing Company. We are in the midst of planning a lot of cool stuff with Falling Knife for this fall. We are collaborating on a beer themed after the show again for this season, and we will also be doing Wolves Fest at Falling Knife right before the season begins. I will keep you updated on all of that as we get closer to those dates, but I wanted to put on your radar that this weekend, on Saturday, August 30th, Falling Knife is doing public tours of their brewery, like where they actually brew the beer. If you're a craft beer guy or gal at all, I really do recommend this. I was there last fall when they were brewing the beer we collaborated on last year, and the process just it's really cool. So that's this Saturday, August 30th at 11:30 a.m. All you need to do is go to Falling Knife's website to register for the free tour. The link to that sign-up page is in the show notes here as well. And if you can't make this one, they're doing it for September, October, November, and December. Also, if you're going to the State Fair this weekend, there is Falling Knife beer at the beer garden of the Ballpark Cafe. Swing by and grab a Tom's beer from Falling Knife Brewing Company. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. And if you play fantasy football, you're probably in the midst of making your fantasy cheat sheets for this upcoming season. I'm sure you've got guys that you love, guys that you hate. And Prize Picks is another way to lean into those picks this season. Maybe you love TreVeyon Henderson. Well, you could take more than on the 700 yards Henderson is set to rush for on Prize Picks. Maybe you're scared of the Dolphins, or you got burned by Tyreek Hill last year. Well, you can short Tyreek this year by going less than 974.5 receiving yards that he set at. I've made my rankings and gone through the discrepancies I have versus Prize Picks, and I made some season-long Prize Picks. It really is fun, and it lasts all season. That's what I like about it. You can kind of check it every week. So go to the NFL season page on Prize Picks. That's NFLSZN. You'll see it right on your app or on the website. There's always something going on over at Prize Picks. And as a reminder, to put together a lineup, all you need to do is put 2 or more picks into your lineup to win. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, as always, all you have to do is use the promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you place your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com and the Prize Picks app. Use promo code Dane when you create that account. Let's move on. You want to introduce this next topic?
Oh, you set me up. Well, first of all, do you want to tell people what I was texting you about on Tuesday night when it was late and we were still trying to come up with ideas? I was like, I have an idea for a pod.
Oh, when you got punched in the face?
No, that was Monday. We'll talk about that offline. I had recently discovered, and I think I saw this on Reddit. So
I got punched in the face and pick up basketball. It was not like on the street or something like that. I feel like that we can't just leave that.
Yeah,
scene.
don't just a.
I thought that's what it was.
My Monday night Lifetime pickup game that went a little awry, and your boy was trying to break it up. Anyway, no, I recently discovered. Shout out to our friends over at Timberwolves Reddit that the entire Game 7 of Wolves Nuggets is on YouTube.
This is what you're talking about.
So I was trying to get Dane to be like, hey, should we just play it in the background and we'll just like live call the game? I forgot. This is not the segment, but I forgot how awesome that game was. And you told me that night, like, I haven't even rewatched it. It's worth a rewatch. It's like 75 minutes. It is condensed a little bit. But like, first, I forgot Mike Anora coached that team. I forgot Mike Conley had that weird 3. Like, just so many plays in that game that kind of like, if you're thirsty for basketball, Nuggets Wolves Game 7 on YouTube. That is not what segment 2 is. Segment 2 is brought to you by that thing that we all have in common as we become divided. The one thing we have in common is that we all have birthdays. And 3 of my favorite people had birthdays in August: Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid, Dane Moore. And then Jade McDaniels had one coming up in September. And this is the most August podcast topic ever, but Ant, I think, is now 24. Jaden will be 25, and Nas just turned 26. Happy birthday, 2 words. And it just kind of got me thinking about how, when does the future become like the present? Because at least with Ant, who's been running around China without a shirt on, like every time he does something, it's like, oh my God, he's only 22, like all NBA, all star. He's got a movie. He's got maybe one of the best shoes in the game. We always do that.
He's
Game
so, 7.
Yeah, like he's so young. He's so young, and he's still super young. But this trio, because I still think in my mind, like that's their core big 3, trio or whatever that they're trying to build around. We're getting to the point soon, right, where it's kind of now, and I don't think we're there yet. But I just think that every year you and I have done this, we've kind of coined our own term. I was talking about gap years last year. I looked like a fool. You had weirdest team ever. This year, like for me, it's not going to be so much continuity. It's going to be expectations. And that's not a fun word for a merch shirt, but I just think this team is slowly getting to the point where like expectations now are going to put some real pressure on these guys that have all done a lot of cool stuff. And Ants, Nas has won 6 Men of the Year and Jaden's been all defense. But there's going to be an expectation to kind of level up now again, like you saw with OKC's big 3 that have different aged guys. But again, I don't know where to really send you there. It's just,
yeah, I know. I thought about it. I have something for you. I have something for you off of it. I was like, okay, so what you're talking about here is the young core of the team being on what we would call the fringe of their primes, like, and pretty close to it. Now it's 26. You're probably in your prime here, but collectively as the group, fringe of their prime. So, but we're too close to the Wolves, right? And so we get our Wolves brain going on, and we could tell ourselves all these different stories. So I thought about it in the context of like, all right, what other team has a setup kind of like this? What other teams do it? And I was just like clicking around, looking at the ages of guys on some other teams, and I just start Atlanta A, right? But I was going through, and Trae Young this season is going to turn 27 over the course of this season. Okongwu is going to be, this will be his 25-year-old season, and Jalen Johnson will be 24. And I was just thinking to myself, what are my expectations of that team, right? And what I would say is, it's kind of like, well, are you guys going to do it or not? You've been kind of to the Hawks, right? Like you've been in this mix for a while. These are your homegrown guys who are on the fringe of their primes, or like Trae Young, maybe in their prime. Yeah, that comes. I have expectations. If the Hawks, win 40 games with their sub 500 next year, I'm gonna be like, that's ridiculous. This isn't given the expectations of what your group should be with your young core having been in place for a while and what you've built and what you put around them. That would be unacceptable. I don't know like exactly what the line is for the Wolves or for the Hawks, but I do think once you get to this point where your best, and a little bit of the difference there is Trae Young's their best player and he's 27 and Ant is 24. So he's Jalen Johnson in this Hawks example. But you brought up the topic to me of like, hey, I think it's time that we have expectations here, and like real expectations for this group. And that is something I think as NBA fans or following the league at large, we do externally. Same thing with Cleveland. Like Cleveland has Jared Allen, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley, 3 guys that they're 27, 26, and 24, young, that they're invested in. And yeah, if the Cavs don't go to like the championship this year, right, or at least the conference finals, we're gonna be like, I don't know. Don't tell me about Darius Garland being 26. That's what my perception of that would be. I do think the difficult part of it is, again, Ant is the younger one, and I don't have huge expectations for Detroit, where Cade's the same age as Ant. I don't know. There's, or even Orlando, where Paolo is 23. If they don't meet those expectations, there's still a little bit more time because those guys are young. But yeah, I think overall, with Ant being 24, Jaden being 25, and Nas being 26 this season, there is the expectation absolutely of production. And frankly, if we feel ourselves a couple months into the season, having a lot of the conversations we had 2 years ago about back-to-back immature approach to the game. Oh, the Wizards came to town and you could see it in the young guys that they weren't there. Yeah, that is not meeting the expectations of being a player that is on the fringe of your prime. Maybe we were too hard on you when you were 21 and we're coming at Ant for his production dipping when it was a day game or it was a back-to-back or there wasn't a cool player on the other team. But now, and all this stuff to me comes down to Ant more than anything, of like, what are reasonable expectations from Ant from an approach standpoint to a game, to a month, to a season? And to Ant's credit, I feel like he's turned a corner in those things very much since when I would come on here and be like, this was Ant's approach when he was 21, 22 years old in this game, that game. So yeah, I think their ages do come with expectations now.
I just think, Anthony Edwards was 22 years old when he made his first Western Conference Finals. I know that's not the NBA Finals, but a lot of times you and I on this pod referenced being ahead of schedule. And again, I think it's just because I have nothing else to do right now other than do mock drafts. But I just wonder, that's kind of like, when does the future become the present? When does the ahead of schedule thing become like, okay, on schedule? And again, I don't think we're there yet, but my brain was thinking about this when you and Jace did that really fun pod about how many titles could the Wolves win in the next 5 years. And I think you gave them 0.13 or some shit. I still don't really understand the metrics, but it was fun to listen to. And then, the Tim Bontemps thing about this team in his eyes or in that category being kind of all in, which again, I think they're all in the one timeline that we've been talking about for a while. They have a new timeline that might develop or show out this year, or I guess maybe next summer, but it just kind of got me thinking, because it's super easy if you're a risk averse person like myself to just be like, wow, they've done all this and they still have so much more room to grow. And I think that's true. But I also think after the first Western Conference Finals, if they would have had a down year and they sold it as we're trading Cat to reset the books and all that stuff, we would have been like, oh, that's dumb, but okay. But after back-to-back Western Conference Finals and 5-game series that you didn't really, there was still a long way to go. I don't really think we can fast forward 9 months from now, barring any major injury, and be like, oh, you know what? They lost in 7 tough games to the Nuggets in round 1, like, good season. And that's like a compliment to them, but they've graduated now to, if you don't make the Final Four, or like, I guess like the Nuggets did in Game 7 in the Final 8, it's going to be a disappointing season. And I'll just be curious for a team that has shown immaturity at the time, but also have shown a lot of growth, how they handle that this season. Because to me, like, the league is more wide open than ever, just based on certain injuries. And it's like, you have a real shot now to do something that the whole point of all of these Matthew Caldwell, Tim Conley hires is to win a title. What happens if, at Thanksgiving, you and I hop on the mics and they're 10 and 12?
Right. How much do you feel like this thought is being driven by the idea that Rudy Gobert is 33 and Mike Conley is 38 right now? What is that? Combined 71 years of age between the two of them.
That's not fair. Don't do that.
75 years for Ant, Jaden, and Nas.
Someone in the comment section just added your age and my age. Like, why are these two old white 72-year-old guys doing this?
Yeah, right, fair. But if in an alternate universe, right, where a year ago Gobert and Conley are no longer on the team and the Wolves repurpose that into a younger pieces or whatever, are we saying the same thing about Ant, Jaden, and not? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if the oldest player on the team was Julius Randle at 31 or whatever, rather than Mike Conley at 38, are we pushing them into it? I don't think so, because I still think that the same thing is true. Like I was saying about, I think we'd be doing the Cleveland thing a little bit, at least, even if they didn't have it. I still think it would feel a little bit like Atlanta. We would still, and maybe this is just the reality of the situation when you're Anthony Edwards and you're at the stage that you're at, any sort of dip becomes unacceptable. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, that goes back to the Bontemps thing again, because it's weird. I think they were in that category strictly because of Rudy Gobert. I mean, no shade to Mike Conley, who, by the way, got a hole-in-one earlier this summer. So I hope
Yes.
Jace Frederick has a full breakdown on the Pioneer Press about what club he used. But, like Rudy
This
Gobert,
is probably a caddying.
yeah, probably. Rudy Gobert
He's the guy filming it.
is thought to be like kind of overrated, but then in like Bontemps thing, it's like he's the glue that holds all of this together. So it's like, okay, which one is it? So yeah, I think you have a good point. We're also, as you said, too close to it, and our fingers are too, in it, that I look as, well, they have their backup, or they have their point guard of the future in Rob Dillingham, right behind Mike. They have their center of the future in Johan Berenger behind Rudy Gobert. But it's like, you also, it's like JJ McCarthy stuff. You haven't really seen it yet, even though you see all the other pieces that are around him, and it should work. So I think it's going to be, maybe I'm trying to sell myself or hype myself up for this next season because I'm bored in August, but I think this is going to be a fascinating year because those two guys that you mentioned, one of them is on the last year of his deal in Mike Conley, and Rudy Gobert is in the second year of what I would say was not a hometown discount, but he kind of shaved some money off to get longer term stability. But I mean, we're not doing transactional talk right now, but if this thing doesn't go right, I don't think I could see a world where both those guys are off the team 9 months from now and they're trying to do something different. So I think this isn't like the last ride documentary, but
No.
I think this is the last opportunity for this core group. Obviously, you think Mike and Rudy, but you could think Julius if this young trio that all just had fall birthdays doesn't pan out. The best thing ever is that you're now year in and year out. I mean, people are bored about talking about the Wolves because they just assume they're one of the 6 or 7 best teams in the league. And this year, that's without a doubt, like they are a contender. And that's like an honorary thing that Wolves fans would have died for decades. But now that you're a contender, like every time you stumble, it's louder, right? Like every time Anthony Edwards does something now, he's a global icon. If you see what's going on in China, it's like he is going to start to get the criticism that the guys like Luka or Tatum got before they started to. I mean, Luka didn't win a title, but I just am fascinated by how this young trio that's young in society's eyes, but getting to their prime in NBA eyes is going to handle, extra expectations. Because to me, I've gone back and forth on this, but if they lose, context doesn't matter. Actually, if they lose in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals again next May, I'm probably going to call it a disappointment because I think this team now is getting to the point where they need to break through that ceiling and create a new ceiling that is higher expectations and success.
What do you think about this overall idea of how they built it? Right, where you trade. This is going back to the Gobert time, and Ant at that when they trade for Gobert is so that Ant, Jaden, and Nas would have been 21, 22, and 23 then, right? And they bring in the vet who's maybe in his prime, but he's in his 30s, like 30, right? So there wasn't a lot left there. What do you think about that in hindsight, or in the context of other teams doing it? Because I was writing down a bunch of these ages as I was talking about Atlanta and Cleveland or whatever, and I feel like it's exactly what Houston is doing. Right? Like Şengün's 20.
Great
like
point.
This
Yeah.
now. Şengün's 23 right now. Jabari Smith's 22. During the season, they turned this. I don't know. It's the ages they're listed at. Şengün 23. Jabari Smith 22. Thompson will turn 23 this season as well. So it's kind of the ages that Ant, Jaden, and Nas were then. I think a lot of people are kind of depending on your KD slant, right? But a lot of people go, why would you bring a 30-something-year-old into that team when it's got this young core? Well, if you look at the Wolves as a success over the last 3 seasons, which I know there's some people still out there like, no, shouldn't have traded for Gobert. But I think that multiple Western Conference Finals, the way this thing has changed, the way you've built up Ant more than anything, it's been a pretty good style. It's been a style of building that's worked. And yeah, I'm sure there's another example of a team I don't have written down here too, but it struck me that Houston is doing it too.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to our August podcast, did the Wolves win the Rudy Gobert trade? I do. I mean, I don't, it's not even I do. I know, man, I know that if you could have gone back and invested all those assets and something into something else, could it have led to more success? Possibly. but you can't do that and have an actual conversation or argument or debate with someone and not do the other side of it. Is like, what if they don't? What if they go 30-52 and Ant realizes how big of a star he could be and he just asks out? Like, that's a real thing. And that was something I think they tried to get out in front of. And I always shit on the Hornets every season for how they build around LaMelo Ball. And now you have a guy that's like, you don't know anything about LaMelo Ball and his winning tendencies because he's never been put in a position to really win or be on that type of level with that type of light. So, yeah, I think it was a clear win. They didn't really lose anyone in terms of players, the assets. I always think, and one day you and I will get Tim Conley and have a beer and be like, could you have just done 4 first-round picks and not 5? Like, who were you negotiating with? I still think you can have an overpay while loving the asset.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure if you know what mortgage rates are last summer, I probably overpaid to build this house. But it's awesome. I have my own space now. So, like, I'm not going to go back in hindsight. But I also think that Tim Conley has done a really good job with the asset side of it, the picks, just finding creative ways to go add Rob Dillingham and Johan Berenjay, the 2 guys that we think are the second timeline of all of this build. So, yeah, it got me thinking. I know birthdays are stupid, but it got me thinking about, are we kind of slowly turning into like this next, I call it the golden age of Timberwolves basketball, but are we kind of getting closer to, okay, everything now is a little more ratcheted up, a little more dialed up, and that's fun, right? Like, that's what we want to do. We don't want to cover the lottery, but how this organization now, which is from an organization standpoint, ownership, CEO, president, coach, whatever, like, this is the strongest they've ever been. And can they use that strength, not to sound stupid, like, to break through to a new level of success?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think I'm going to let it impact the way I view, like you're down on the Houston thing. You're down on the KD thing, right? Like but there's a thread of that is hypocritical, given that a very similar thing, a polarizing player in Rudy Gobert, was acquired to be the old guy on a young guy team. And externally, we heard it for years of like, now are we the people going, Kevin Durant? I don't know. I guess my question is that hypocritical?
I thought you were going to say that you were going to use this kind of rant I had to like change how you talk about the team moving forward. Cause I think I will like my wife and I just love fruit, but my wife only eats bananas that like are perfectly ripe. So like, it's like that kind of bell curve of like, nope, green, perfect. And then if they're not perfect for one day, it's like, now we got to get rid of them. I think about that with ages of like athletes of like, okay, every time
and KD versus Gobert is a very different age thing. That's fair.
Yeah. So I just think again that these guys have done so much truly without a title. They've all had like personal success, but also team success. I mean, like if you and I did our top 100 list, like a lot of the guys that are on this team that they're building around are probably in the top 10 of Timberwolves of all time because of just the success they've had. But once you start to realize and look around like, hey, this has a chance to like win a finals, and you really only get an Anthony Edwards once, maybe ever, you have to start to continue to level up. And that first year was awesome. It was the first Western Conference Finals with Ant was the most fun I've ever had. Last year was kind of icing on the cake, but now you can't go backwards because you start to open up all these different possibilities of, who is safe and who is not safe. So I really like that Rockets thing, though. I'm going to think on that a little bit because I do.
When the Wolves went to the
same thing. Yeah.
When the Wolves went to Western Conference Finals that you watched this weekend, the one from 2 years ago, Rudy Gobert was 31 and Mike Conley was 36. In Houston this season, Kevin Durant will be 37 and Fred VanVleet will be 31. It's like kind of similar that way with the young core.
It's funny too, depending on what you believe, and I know you and I believe the same thing, just different than what's been reported, of what the offer was on the Wolves side for Kevin Durant. It's like they tried to do another Gobert trade of like, okay, we have these pieces. Let's get the final, like when the Vikings were, whether it's true or not, like we have all these other pieces. Should we just go get Aaron Rodgers? Like we have all these other pieces. Should we just even lean into this one specific window even more? And they couldn't do it. Maybe they didn't want to do it. The Rockets did it. And both those franchises, I mean, the Rockets have a lot more like assets in terms of picks, but they both have good young cores. I think the Wolves is light years better because you don't really know who the Rockets' best player is. But it's going to be fascinating. Those two teams are also projected to be two of the top 3 or 4 teams in the West behind. Obviously, Denver had an incredible offseason, and then the Thunder are just going to run it back like the Wolves have done, but with more success. So those two teams to me are like the most fascinating teams in the West, not because we are so close to it, but because they've kind of mimicked each other. They have front office ties and all that stuff dating back forever. And it's going to be fascinating to see how both teams with young cores, but older players that they rely on handle, the marathon of an 82-game season.
Today's show is brought to you by Adriana Lonick at Caldwell Banker Realty. And if it is time to buy or sell your home, please do reach out to Adriana Lonick at Caldwell Banker to help you with that process. All you need to do is go to thedancingrealtor.com or call or text her at 715-304-9920. You go there, you reach out to her to book that free strategy session. And even if you're just beginning to think about buying or selling your home, I promise you, you're going to save yourself a bunch of time if you work with Adriana and get that ball rolling right away. The perk we do have for doing this is if you do set up one of those free consultations with Adriana, you will be registered to win some free Wolves tickets for next season. I know there's a chunky out there listening right now who are thinking about purchasing a home. If you're thinking about it, maybe procrastinating it, jump on it. Go to thedancingrealtor.com or call or text Adriana at 715-304-9920 to book that free strategy session. And like I said, mention this podcast and get entered to win a pair of free Timberwolves tickets when you do book that consultation. Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. Fall's almost here, which means winter is not that far away. And if you have a home improvement project that you need to get done prior to the winter, get it done. Get some windows. They have that buy 2 windows, get 2 free deal on triple pane windows. They also have the bathroom renovation deal still going with us, where you get 30% off a bathroom renovation. Could be a full renovation, tub to shower conversion, 30% off any home improvement project. I would love it if you considered working with Your Home Improvement Company. Longtime sponsor of the show, supporter of this show, helps us out a lot. I do think it's something that many of you are going to need at some time soon. So whatever the project is, Your Home Improvement Company offers great financing deals that require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026. Contact Your Home Improvement Company by calling 866-777-YHIC or by going to yourhomeimprovementco.com. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. All right, let's do a stupid segment.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We're now... Dane and I are now going to compare players on the Timberwolves roster to fantasy football picks in a snake draft or an auction draft.
You guys got to understand that it's lean out here right now. And we were like texting on Tuesday or something, like, man, I hope the CEO news breaks because we're doing a podcast on Thursday, so we don't have to do a completely stupid episode. But we are both fantasy football dorks and spend a lot of time. We both have like drafts this weekend and that sort of deal. So this is frankly this is the month not only of my show that we kind of check out of, but my podcast listening shifts from listening to NBA podcast to that. Chris and I were joking on the last episode. You listen to fantasy podcasts, it's like everybody likes the same people. People on everyone. But we have fantasy football brain right now. I'm not going to lie. I did spend a ton of time on this morning.
I'm not going to lie. I spent less time than you did. Yeah. But I think it's topical because
fun, it was fun. Yeah.
We're doing this at the end of August. Like I said before, we've never done August pods. We tried to keep it a little light this month. But then again, this is like the bottoming out of the Dane Moore NBA podcast. Before we all celebrate Labor Day and everyone gets kind of one more bite.
I like it.
No offense to Finch and Tim Conley, but everyone gets one more bite at the apple of summer before you really kind of have to hone in on all the stuff that goes on starting in September. But I'm also, as we record this on the 28th, we are essentially 1 month out exactly from media day, and things will pick up. So starting in September, I think your podcast will be far more basketball centric again. But what do you want me to do, man? I asked a couple buddies, shout out to my guy, Jack Borman, hey, any ideas? And then we were just, do you want to talk about your expectations for Rob Dillingham again? Because I don't know. I just want him to play.
I do have him down as I have a player comp for him.
Oh, and this is okay. Cooper, break these out into videos because this is going to be awesome. Why don't you? Are we going snake or are we going auction?
Well, no, I'm just saying, let's just like a player comp, like
okay.
Rob Dillingham. What you think of Rob Dillingham for this coming season? What fantasy player in fantasy football right now do you kind of feel the same way? I'll do the Rob Dillingham one first. Ricky Pearsall, second-year player, maybe breakout candidate, but also very well, might not work. We haven't really seen that much of it. How many games did Pearsall play in last year? How many games did Rob play in last year? Obviously a piece that the team is invested in, but you don't really.
And Rob just needs flashes. A shot. Yeah. Bad joke. But no, I see that because like if one of my best friends out here is a 49ers fan and they still have the infrastructure in San Francisco with, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this with George Kittle and CMC and Brock Purdy, but they need Ricky Pearsall who again was out a lot last year because of what happened off the field. That was super tragic, but also the fact that he was hurt. They need him to like essentially be wide receiver one. And the Wolves don't need Rob Dillingham to be, their best player, but they need him to be like point guard one. And he is going to, that's going to be a conversation we're going to have. You're going to be doing 3 or 4 pods a week about this whole Rob Dillingham, Mike Conley thing. How much juice does Mike have left? Brendan Ayuk versus how much juice can you get from Rob Dillingham? So I think those are actually really good comps. I don't know where I draft him. I know Ricky Pearsall's a sleeper, but how can you be a sleeper when everyone's awake about that player? So.
But in all seriousness, like a thing that's then coming up, we were texting about this, like Sam Vecini, who I respect a lot and knows the draft really well. Like, he redrafted the 2024 draft, and I wrote an article about doing that. And he had Rob out of his top 20 in a redraft that he did have Terrence Shannon Jr. I think it was 17th. So he bumped him up. But that is kind of something that can happen, over a year, is like a player's stock can fall. And I'm not, and I've been critical of things of Rob Dillingham too, and have questions about, or not questions, but defining the things that we think he's going to need to figure out to be able to be successful. But I do think part of with Rob, that how did we go from him being the 8th overall pick, 12 months ago, to a guy that we're saying is not, one of the best prospects from that class, right, or not even close. I feel like that's, a little bit of a departure there. Could that happen? Sure. That Rob doesn't hit here, but I do think in fantasy football terms, he's a guy who, like, your rankings versus ADP, you'd be like, okay, this is great. target in the auction. You gotta count?
Yeah, I'm gonna do Ant. And this, if I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I would still make this same comp. So it's not that I'm just biased, but I actually had Anthony Edwards as Justin Jefferson, because Justin Jefferson every year now, just you're gonna get the super high floor. But he's done it with a variety of different quarterbacks, right? And he's done it on teams that maybe were older or didn't have, all the best draft picks around him. You just know he's just going to be one of the best at his position, even if everything around him isn't going super well. On Ant's side, he's had a lot of talent and a good infrastructure, as Justin Jefferson has had. But now it's like he's looking around. He's got, this young quarterback or a young point guard, right? He's got some older players on the line, or, manning the back line and Rudy Gobert. And it's like, okay, if those other, like, if the run game for the Vikings is really good and the wide receivers are healthy and the offensive line that you've invested in can protect, like, everything is there for McCarthy to go skyrocket up and be a top 10 quarterback in the league. And for Ant, if he gets watching Jaden hit those 2 threes against the Nuggets on YouTube, like, if Jaden McDaniels can open up one more part of his game and the young guys can, inject some life. I mean, Justin Jefferson, like, Anthony Edwards isn't the best player in the league in many people's eyes. Justin Jefferson, to some, is not the best wide receiver in the league. He doesn't go ahead of Jamar Chase in drafts. But if the things around that player can elevate a little bit, then there literally is no, like, I think Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown last year for wide receivers. There is no reason Justin Jefferson can't do the same thing. There is no reason Anthony Edwards, who is, by all accounts, 7th or 8th best player in the league, can't just, like, leapfrog Luka Doncic if he were to have that type of team success around him, because that he has again, 12 months from now, we're like, what do you expect from Ant this year? And then he just broke the 3-point record. He became the best 3-point shooter in the league. So I know it's simple because they're both from Minnesota, but I just think that those two guys, I mean, how lucky are Minnesota sports fans to have those two and Fee and whoever plays on the Twins to cheer for. And if everything else around them, if those players, those coaches, those organizations can find another level to level up, you're looking at two of the best to ever do it in their respective sport. And they can bring a title to a city and a state that is starved for a title on the men's side.
Yeah. I did Lamar Jackson for Ant because
that's good too. Yeah.
With Lamar, right? Like you kind of, you see highlights or your understanding of him from, 10,000 feet is, well, elite runner, elite athlete. Right.
Oh yeah.
And with Ant, you kind of go, oh, best dunker in the league, all that. But watching Ant all the time, the more actually powerful part of his game is the 3-point shot, the more impactful part of it. And Lamar, like Ant, has kind of developed that with the, as one of the passing leaders in the NFL last season, while also still being, the fastest quarterback in the NFL. And Ant is the same thing. He's one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA, and he's probably the best athlete or the best dunker in that way. Who was your Jaden McDaniels one?
I'm still getting, that was a really good one with Lamar. I just want to add on the Lamar thing because our guy Michael Hagan is like the biggest Lamar Jackson fan. I was thinking you're going with Lamar Jackson has kind of done everything now, but make a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's won an MVP. Now Ant hasn't won an MVP, but again, like the movie, the All NBAs, the Fat Max extension. I think him or Sabrina have like the best basketball shoe. Like he's getting to the point where now he's done everything else but make it to the final game or the final series and win a title. So I really like that one. Jaden McDaniels, I had a lot that I'm not going to share. You start with this one because I struggled.
I had your guy. And I think it works too. Jaden's your guy. And as from our fantasy football texting, I feel like Jackson Smith-Njigba is your guy as well, right? Like, there's the DK Metcalf not there anymore. There's you could start maybe seeing them use him, increasing his bandwidth of how he's involved in the offense. It started really small. Smith-Njigba's first year because they had DK and they had Tyler Lockett there. And so, Smith-Njigba was kind of sitting in the corner on offense. And now I think he's going to be the wide receiver one there. I don't know if Jaden's going to be the wide receiver one on the Wolves, but maybe given more offensive bandwidth, let's let him play. Let's let him run some pick and roll. Let's take JSN out of the slot a little bit. Let's move him around. I like that one.
He had to be a wide receiver because he is like the most, I mean, and your people are wondering like why. He's the chillest dude. He doesn't really create
any issues. Wondering why about this whole segment.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't really create any issues behind the scenes, but he also kind of is like I'll just be honest. He is my favorite player. I did write down Antonio Brown pre-CTE just because he is kind of a lunatic at times. And the reason I say that is, again, game 7, as I watched Tuesday night and texted Dane at 1 a.m, I forgot in that game that he tried that bounce the ball to himself dunk. And it's that's the most wide receiver thing of all time of just watch me do this crazy shit. So Jackson Smith-Njigba is a good one because for Jaden, and this will actually be a real basketball thing that I would imagine is on our series or season preview, one of the 5 things I'm looking at. He did level up last year, and I'm biased, of course, but I think you who is not biased, but just gets the game better than I do. He did just show you more, and you're like, okay, good. We, 5x his salary. Now can we get 5x his production? And he showed you a lot more offensively. He still kind of struggles from the corners, but how different ways like JSN can you use Jaden, not only defensively? I mean, again, you saw the picture. I know you did of him standing next to Kawhi. He's Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels, which is why I keep saying Baby B just maybe doesn't need to play this year. Jaden McDaniels, to me, is this team's backup center. And I think if you can find lineups with him at center and Nas at the 4, and then Ant the 3 and TJ at the 2, and now you're running Rob at the point, those are exciting lineups that we did not see last year. And they do leave you some things like rebounding and stuff. But I'm curious to see how JSN as a wide receiver 1 now in not a new system, but without DK alongside of him, acts. And I'm curious to see Jaden still has his wide receiver 1 next to him and Ant. But what else can Chris Finch do? Because Jaden has always been the fifth guy to eat, and I think that has to just go away. I think he has to be fed a little bit more for this offense to find more ways to not struggle like they did against OKC.
All right, let's rapid fire through a couple more. Go.
Rudy Gobert.
I got one. Yeah. What do you got?
No, I have the one. Mike Evans. Because he's super, I mean, honestly, like just super consistent, right? Like, I mean, Mike Evans probably has a higher Q rating and stuff, but Rudy Gobert just every year is the guy that elevates them to win in February. He is an innings eater. You know what you're going to get. Mike Evans has been 1,000-yard receiver every year of his career. I just thought that was an easy one because they're both older players at their positions, and they both just have a really good, I mean, sometimes that's the best, right? Like if I was building a team, whether it be a fantasy team that we're drafting or like a real team, the volatility of certain players would start to drive you crazy, right? Like you don't want a guy that in week 2 is going to get you 4 points and in week 3 is going to get you 24 points. Like you probably lost week 2. I kind of want that guy that's just going to get me 14 to 16 points every week. So I can kind of just pencil him in. And I just think Rudy Gobert has done that his whole career, but especially since Minnesota days of if he's playing and he plays a lot, you just kind of know what you're going to get. And it's going to increase the likelihood that you win that game.
I went touchdown heavy too. I said David Montgomery. for Gobert, right?
There are 6 people listening to this pod right now. I love
it. Give me another one.
No, you go. It's your turn.
I went Trey McBride for Naz Reid.
Okay.
You know, it's like an elite athlete. Like the skill game is all there, but you're still left wanting a little bit. You're like, there's more to a ceiling here, you know, where given how athletic you are, though that the gifts that you have, that there's more that you could get to, but I'm not like certain that Nas or Trey McBride are going to be able to do to get there. I said Josh Jacobs for Julius Randle. It's just better than you think.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bull too. Like, but it always seems to be lower. Where he gets drafted always seems to be lower than it is. It's like, it doesn't get any receptions. Can't take him in a PPR. Like Julius Randle can't shoot. Yeah. Well, he could get into the end zone. You give it to him on the goal line. You give it to Julius Randle on the block, single coverage. I had
a good one for this is from my dynasty fantasy football nerds out there, but Terrence Shannon Jr. ready to plug and play right now. Older prospect. He is RJ Harvey for the Denver Broncos.
Okay. Yeah.
Older running back. I mean, it's so weird to like live life in your 30s and then talk about sports where it's like RJ Harvey, 24, he's old as fuck. And it's like, dude, he's a rookie. he can't even rent a car in Maui right now. So I think RJ Harvey in the Denver offense is like, if you plug and play him, he can do a lot of stuff. He's a physical back. He's fast. He catches the ball out of the backfield. Terrence Shannon Jr., to me, I know we've gone all over the place in terms of potential season previews, but to me, he is, I think more than Rob, the most interesting player this year, because I just think if Chris Finch can, swallow a little bit of his conservatism in terms of guys making mistakes, you're going to get more than you're going to lose by just letting Terrence just run wild. And I think in that Denver offense, a Denver team that's expected to be really, really good this year, a lot of that to me is like having an outlet for their quarterback, Bo Nix. I think having an outlet for Anthony Edwards in transition, fast breaks, like in the half court, of just a guy that you can trust that can hit some threes, but also get downhill, create for others. Those were my two guys.
I said Ollie Gordon for Terrence Shannon Jr.
Jesus, a weird deep. Did you have any quarterbacks? I guess that's my thing here.
I did. I had one.
Okay, give me a quarterback, because it's probably got to be Mike, right?
Yeah, Jared Goff. I would say better than you think. Better than you think. You know what I mean? But you know exactly what you can get. It's not going to be more than that. But by the time the season's over, you go, all right, Jared Goff is second in total passing yards this season. Mike Conley made 44% of his threes. Yeah, I had Jared Goff for Mike Conley.
Is there anyone else? Because I kind of stopped there.
I had Lamar Jackson. For anybody else?
Anyone else on your team? This is a safe space.
Johan Berenger, Emeka Egbuka, Everybody's convinced.
Okay.
Everybody's convinced it's going to be really, really good right away. It's going to be good at some point, but like, you know, I don't think week one you're going to get Johan Berenger, dominating in the rotation, and I'm not sure you're going to get that from Egbuka either. I did do a white guy comp for Dante DiVincenzo.
Adam Thielen.
No.
Okay.
But it's like you think he has one skill set, but he doesn't. There's more to his game. Lad McConkey for Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah. I like that one.
Leonard Miller, Marvin Harrison Jr. You're jacked, but like, are you good?
Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a disappointing rookie season, I think, because of his name. But he still, I think, had like 880 yards and like 8 touchdowns ever. No, but it's just kind of like he did struggle a little bit to separate. And I don't know if he's like the best athlete. And again, he's on my team, so like that's why I know all this dumb shit about him. But like, he's not Malik Neighbors, but it's also like, so what was his plan in the offseason? It's just like, let me just get thicker arms. Like, oh, okay, that's not but yeah, him and Leonard Miller probably would have a lot to talk about too. So yeah, that is did you have a coach? Because I've been thinking about this a lot. And maybe we can close this and kind of go off into the Labor Day weekend. But a lot of times when the Wolves would struggle, I feel like I and you, deservedly so, would get shit for Chris Finch not being an offensive wizard. And I'm pretty sure that's that phrase we coined. Like, I'm pretty sure when we were trying to do this, when he replaced Ryan Saunders, we didn't know anything about the backup or the assistant coach for the Raptors. And we're like, oh, he's an offensive wizard. I've come to learn that maybe that's still in there. And maybe he just can't. He's coaching more with the pieces that he has, like he doesn't have I do think in my mind a couple of years ago, if Chris Finch would have coached like that version of the Warriors, that they would have been really, really good. Not because just of Steph, but like they would have had more guys older in age that kind of understood the nuances of cutting without the ball and all that stuff. But in this line of work right now, what Chris Finch has done in his 5 or 6 years here, like, do you have a NFL coach comp to him?
It sounds like you do.
No, I don't. I was curious because, like, it's probably not.
I don't have to draft any coaches in fantasy football.
I know. I was just making small talk. Because it's not, it's not Sean McVay. I don't think Chris Finch has shown a level of offensive creativity, whether because he doesn't have the right ingredients in the kitchen or whatever, but just the
Ben Johnson.
Well, Ben Johnson is kind of a weird guy. I'm just doing a lot of Minnesota stuff, but like you talk to people that are like covering the Vikings or that are around the Vikings every day, and it's like one of the things that KOC, the players, love is just like how KOC talks to them. And I just kind of thought, again, I'm doing a lot of Vikings Timberwolves crossover, but it sure as hell is not Rocco Baldelli. It's like he just gets how to interact with his players and try to get the most out of them. And I think, again, going back to what we started an hour ago, CEO talk, having those type of people in your organization are really, really big. But my favorite pick, I think, honestly, was Ant Lamar, because those are two polarizing. Who was the guy that was like, or Lamar Jackson should play wide receiver, right? Like Anthony Edwards was talked about the same way in 2020 in the draft that Lamar Jackson was talked about. Like maybe Anthony Edwards should play, like, come off the bench. It's like, actually, maybe he's like one of the 7 best players in the league. So that was our, it's going to be annual now, August fantasy football Timberwolves crossover. So thanks for listening.
You didn't want my Joe Ingles, Austin Eckler? Oh.
Okay, why is that?
Not old. I don't know. Still here, but like, can you do anything? I don't know.
Remember, it seems like so long ago. I miss that. I miss when, because like Twitter's slow right now. It's like Wolves Twitter. Everyone's enjoying the summer, but I miss when people freaked out about like re-signing Joe Ingles. I can't wait for that again. I know I'm going to regret this, but I just can't wait for the chaos and those toxic evenings when they lose to the Hornets or something. Like, it's coming. Like, it's going to be here now before you know it, because get a couple weeks off and then it's like media day. Then they have a bunch of preseason games and we'll see what they do. And then they open it up in Portland. So
Jalen Clark, Jacoby Myers, Rocco Zakarsky, Cam Scatterbo.
Okay, you did. Hey,
that's my list. You
did. You're like, I didn't do much prep. Like, watch Rocco Zakarsky. I forgot he was on the team. I'll be honest with you. So thanks for reminding me.
All right, man. This was fun. Good luck with your fantasy drafts this weekend. I hope that to everyone listening, I hope when you when you do draft Jared Goff that you think of Mike Conley this weekend.
Oh, I had one more thing,
yeah.
just one quick.
Oh yeah.
No one's listening to this anymore, so this is good for me. But you usually allow all our other guests at the end of the show to kind of promote things they're working on. And I don't work full time in the media landscape, but I do work full time in cancer research, and it is kind of basketball related because a couple weeks ago, 2 Thursdays ago, it was announced that the Portland Trailblazers had been sold for about $4 billion out here in Portland to the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, another hockey basketball crossover. But Phil Knight, who is co-founder of Nike, was not the guy to win the thing, which is kind of fascinating. Well, the next day, after not buying the Blazers for $4 billion, he donated, in the history of our country, the largest donation to a university or an institution ever. He gave, where I work, $2 billion in order to help fight cancer research. I have been very open about how important cancer research is. Cancer research has been, unfortunately, under attack this year, and this is not a political thing. This is just, cancer research is not political. It is not a topic that needs to be, it should be bipartisan. It's not a left or a right thing. Cancer research saved my mom's life. Cancer research saved my mother-in-law's life. Cancer research has helped our guy, Jim Pete, who is cancer-free, Marnie Gellner. So yeah, I was just really proud. We have this little mantra or this little promotional thing out here, which is like, give cancer hell. But yeah, it was just cool to work for an organization where $2 billion is a lot of money. And if you follow the news at all, this spring, we were concerned about if we were still going to be able to receive funding. And now my institution, where I work 9 to 5, outside of doing these pods with Dane, is trying to lead the way again to show the importance of investing in the science. Because again, you're listening to this, someone in your life probably has cancer or will have cancer, and it's the most scary thing in the world. It's the worst C word you can hear. And just to work for a place, I feel very proud that we are trying to revolutionize how we take care of people that are in really scary and potentially life-ending situations. So shout out to cancer research. Continue to check in on your loved ones, check in on yourself, make medical appointments to make sure that you get a clean bill of health so you can follow Dane and I along on this journey to maybe winning a title with the Wolves. So yeah, it's not an interview with Mike Conley. Jace is really good at those, but it was really important to me to promote where I work and what we're doing.
No, I'm glad you kind of bookends the episode. I talked a little bit about the school shooting at Annunciation before you came on here, and it's unfortunate that obviously that we're talking about any of these things at all. I said this a little bit before you came on too. I don't know what this show is to other people other than like a distraction. I mean, we just did player comps to fantasy football players, but you probably don't say it enough, but I that is, our hope for this show is that, it's an escape, a healthy, a good distraction from the rest of life, an hour-long break in your week or your weekend or whatever to, tap in to a pod. And I know every episode there's probably somebody listening who has something extremely significant going on in their life, positive too, and sometimes, or I do, I'm a big go on a walk and listen to a podcast person, and it's a really healthy, I think, escape for me. And it's always our hope that this show, serves as that for you, a stupid, silly show about basketball, but hopefully it's something that gives you a little bit of peace and healthy distraction.
And again, on my little rant, I think you and I do a good job of, hashtag sticking to sports. And I think we'll continue to do so because, as we talked about when we were bloggers, I got into this to distract myself and to hopefully provide, 15 minutes of a quick read or an hour of a quick podcast to kind of distract you. But again, it's not, cancer research should not be political. A lot of other topics shouldn't be political. They are right now, either side of the aisle. It's just, we got to find more ways to remember to distract ourselves, to invest in ourselves, to fill up our cups, and to check in on those we love. Because whatever you think about anything right now, we just got to have more empathy, more love, and just check in with those that are important to us. So you and I continue to do that in our lives. I hope the listeners continue to do that as well. And I mean, not to get ahead of the cart here, but like you and I are going to be doing way more podcasts this season. So hopefully we provide more of a distraction. You're going to have to listen to more of me, sadly, but I'm really excited about doing this, but I also wanted to take a moment because again, it's August 28th and some of the topics that I sent to Dane that didn't make the cut. Imagine how bad those were. So
no, man, I appreciate you bringing that up. And we probably some people for the first time don't even know that that's what your background is in and why it's so important to you. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we'll circle back here. Things will kind of remain spotty the beginning of September with the show, but we'll kick into gear at our higher volume of shows kind of right before training camp starts on Monday, September 29th. The week before that, we'll really ramp up. The Monday of September 22nd will kind of be our sort of kickoff of higher volume. And then, yeah, as Kyle kind of hinted at, which we'll talk about more, we are planning on moving to a 5-day-a-week schedule next season, when previously we were doing 4. And generally speaking, that 5th day of the week will be Kyle. So yeah, not a lot of basketball topics or podcasts right now, but we got a bunch coming for you in less than a month, and I am excited for that. Thanks for doing it. You got anything else?
No, I just hope that I'm not the next guest you have on, because I am literally dry. I have fired all my bullets. I've talked about my own life, my job. I got punched in the face. So go enjoy Labor Day. The Vikings kick it off next week. And then before you know it, again, I'm always like, oh man, I just need more time off from the Wolves. Well, now I kind of am wishing they were here, and it's going to come quick and fast starting later in September. So
awesome, man. You guys can always follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Theige, and we'll have more to come with Kyle here soon. And I'm sure we'll do another episode here in the next few weeks to kind of move us along to the start of next season. Until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.